I'm Lisa Haisha. Welcome to the Legacy Series. Today I have Brenda Adelman, and I have known Brenda forever. We actually went and got our master's degree in psychology together, and we were on the same team. They put you in I guess 3 or 4 people to a group, to accountability partners and support group. And we've kept on and off touch throughout the years, and we both have grown tremendously. And we reconnected at Optimum Health Institute just a few months back. And I was reminded by who she was then and who she is today and everything she accomplished in between. I'm like, what? Are you the same Brenda? Hello. It was just astounding. So I said, I need you on my show. And here she is. She drove up from San Diego, and I'm thrilled to have her here. And what I'd like to discuss with her is forgiveness and how she could reach her legacy through forgiveness, because she had several, hard hits in her life. And I'm going to let her explain what they are and how she came through it and massaged the pain out of her and is now living her dream life. So enter Brenda. Hi.
Hi.
So, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I was so happy when we reconnected.
Me too, and I was just so impressed by you. I was just like, this is a phenomenal woman and a formidable woman. You have grown more than I think anyone I've ever met in a decade. So it really shows you've worked on yourself. You have this hit one-woman show that is phenomenal. You are coaching. You've got a lot of clients. You started a family. You got married. You have a child.
Yeah.
And all that's a whole nother story. And when I met you, you were in a lot of pain through something that happened to you in your personal life. And you have come through it like with bells and whistles. So I'd love for you to start with what your story is. Growing up, what happened, and then through to forgiveness.
Great. Well, let's see. Well, first of all, it is true. You are one of the people who have really witnessed me in my darkest time, in thinking back about how we met after you asked me to be here. I thought, oh my God, Lisa was with me through the darkest time in my life. A dark time where I wasn't hiding, because really before I went to the University of Santa Monica, where we met, I was in a dark place, but I was also hiding myself and isolated. So no one really knew what I was going through. I wasn't really showing myself. When I was out, I had a mask on, and I'm sure I had a bit of that on at USM too in the beginning for sure, but I was thinking, wow.
Okay, so I would love to hear about your journey, about where you started, your family life, and your journey on.
Okay, from the beginning.
Yeah, from the beginning with forgiveness.
Okay, so, and just going back a little bit to when we met. So, when I was invited to do this after we reconnected a few months ago, I just thought about the fact that you know me in a way that in some ways no one else knows me, except for who was on that project team really at the University of Santa Monica, because I was in so much pain, and I'll talk about that in a minute of why I was. But before I went to that school, I was isolating myself and feeling so damaged inside and so like I would be alone for the rest of my life. And when we were in that project team together, I was trying to get out of it. It was like I was like someone who was drowning, and I needed to get out, kind of like how. And so what brought me to that place is that in 1995, my father, whom I adored, I really was daddy's little girl in many ways, and my mother, who was my best friend, a quirky bohemian artist, really kind of like my most daring best friend, my father shot and killed her. And then within a month moved in with my aunt, my mother's sister. And my brother and I have different fathers. It was my father who killed our mother, and in essence, my brother and I had a huge rift because of it, because I was in denial. I couldn't believe that my father did this, even though all the facts pointed to it. Really, emotionally, I couldn't handle losing my father as well as my mother in that one night. So here it was just a few years after that, and I was starting to come out of my hiding and searching for a way to no longer be a victim to my life. And so when I met you all those years ago, I was working my process. I was learning, why did this happen to me? And not only why, shifting from why did this happen to me, which is a question that keeps you, or keeps me, I'll talk for myself, in pain and in the past, to, okay, now that this happened, how can I really, you know what the question really was? How can I ever love again? That was really my question inside. And it was how can I ever be loved again? And how can I love again? And so that's where I was, and I learned the tools I needed to, in addition, doing the inner work. And then, because I was an actress, I started writing about my family, and not even intending it to be a one-person show, and that's where the healing started.
So when you talked about you did the inner work, can you explain to me what the inner work was? Because that's a huge thing to get over. And I know we got the tools together at the school, both working our process. But it's one thing to get the tools. It's another to practice it and then stay on it. And then 10 years later, really still on it.
Yeah.
You know, that you didn't slip back, didn't do drugs or become an alcoholic because your thoughts and...
Oh, yeah. It's so true.
Because your whole life was ripped apart.
Yes. So there were definitely stages in getting the tools. I think one of the biggest things I learned back then was what a healthy boundary was. That was the first time in my life I even knew there was such a thing as a healthy boundary. And I think what I've learned over these years of also teaching this work is that most people don't know what a healthy boundary is. They think it's either I let someone walk all over me, I forgive them because that's the right thing to do, but inside you're so angry and you're seething, or you're numbing yourself out with any number of addictions, or you have a hard boundary. It's like, I'm never having that person in my life again. And so back then I was in between those two places with my father. I hate him, I love him, I hate him, I love him, I hate him, I'm not having him in my life. But then he would be living so vividly in my mind that then when I learned what a healthy boundary is, and that I could actually do inner work on my own and release him, so that it's kind of like releasing those resentments that I was holding inside of me, so that just thinking about him wouldn't wreck my day. I think that was a huge turning point for me. And I continued to do the work I needed to do by being uber conscious of when I was not feeling balanced. And specifically with my father, I had a huge breakthrough when, after we graduated from that school, I made the decision to take him to court for wrongful death. And he did, by the way, serve 2.5 years of a 5-year sentence for involuntary manslaughter, which I really believe happened because he had a very good lawyer and he had money, and so he was able to do that. And the murder weapon, the gun that killed my mother, which was his gun, which was also the gun I learned to shoot on when I was a little kid, was never found. So there was a cleanup, and that's why there was a plea bargain. But I decided after he got out of jail, I decided to take him to court for wrongful death with my brother. My brother and I reconciled at that time, and all the forgiveness I did around my father, which was really letting go of the resentments. Semantically, they would say, at USM, I forgive myself for judging myself as, I had to do a lot of forgiveness of self. I forgive myself for judging myself as trusting my father. I forgive myself for buying into the misinterpretation that I'm dumb because I ever trusted him, and then reframing it to, of course I trusted him, he was my father. I had to do a lot of self-forgiveness, and all that self-forgiveness and forgiveness of my father, I also applied those skills to forgiving my brother, because my brother and I had that rift, and I felt like he's my only brother, he's my older brother, how could he abandon me now? But then when I realized we were coming together for this case, I thought, everything I'm judging him for, he could judge me for. I'm his only sister. I abandoned him. And it made me, I'm getting all choked up now because it meant so much to me. I went into deep remorse and regret for how guilty I felt that I had cut my heart down from him, trying to set a boundary, thinking it was making me safe, but it was really causing more pain. And so I did all that forgiveness of judgments of him, forgiveness of judgment of myself, and my brother and I reconciled in New York, doing a court case for wrongful death against my father, which my father never showed up for. And so I had to deal with yet another feeling of being abandoned, and really get that, in some ways, why would he show up? I was holding him accountable. And then I did a ceremony of release with my father. I took a hat, and I play this out in my one-woman show. I took a hat of his that I had still, and I went to the top of a mountain in Los Angeles, and I really felt like there were angels by my side. And I wrote a poem, and it was a poem based on feeling like if there's any part of me if I hate any part of my father, then I'm actually hating a part of myself, closing my heart down to myself, and I never wanted to do that to myself again. And so I went up, I said the poem, and I threw his hat over the mountain, and it was an incredible release of energy. And from that day on, it was like my heart was open again. I never saw my father again, but my heart was open, and I felt like something just shifted. Those resentments, all of that, even resentments against myself, I just let them go in that moment. Not to say that I didn't have other forgiveness work to do around my aunt who married my father, and other self-forgiveness and even heal my relationships and things like that but that was a moment where my heart opened, and from that moment on, I really believe that's why I've been able to create so much love in my life, and now have a family, and now be married and have a son, and going from, I think...
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, when we met, you were doing all this forgiveness work. It was a 2-year program, and you felt you couldn't love or be loved. And then at school, you met someone.
I know.
You want to share a little bit about that?
It's so funny.
How unexpected it was. We went to that party.
That's right. You're at the party,
Yeah.
too. Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. That is so funny. Yes. So one of the projects they had in the school was to make an ideal scene about, something that you wanted, and I wanted to be in love. And so I wrote, what the shift was for me is in the past, whenever I had thought about the relationship I wanted, it was always, the person had these qualities that I felt I didn't have within myself, right? But this time, I wrote this ideal scene, and I thought, well, what do I admire about myself? And I was at a point of doing all this self-forgiveness that I admired my humor, I admired my ability to love, I admired my innocence, and all these other things, and I wrote them on it. But what I didn't write was it had to be a man, because I just assumed it would be a man because I had been straight my whole life, or so I thought. And so I was at a party after a particularly, grueling weekend of work, emotionally grueling and fierce, and it was just so funny. I don't know what version of this you want here, long or short, but I was ready and open. I was loving myself enough to be ready to be in a relationship, and a good relationship. And we're at this party after the weekend that one of the students held, and it was like a letting loose party because everyone had done so much work, you could say.
It's very celebratory and free.
Very free.
Healers everywhere. This one doing Reiki, this one massage, this one
there was lots of chocolate.
Lots of everything, yes.
Yeah. And so this woman was in, one of the students, I think she was like 22 years old, one of the girls in the class, had just lost her virginity. This is exactly what happened. She had just lost her virginity, and so she started saying in the conversation, I just lost my virginity, and it really wasn't a big deal. And then she goes to my partner and says, my partner now, and my wife now, and says, what's it like when you're gay? Because it really wasn't doing anything. And so my partner was like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing. It's blah, blah, blah. Like, she was just like, she engaged me. And so I said to her, I've thought about kissing a woman for many years. And she was like, come on, because she thought I was like the straightest girl she ever met. And because
you are a woman.
Straight, yes.
With men,
and she saw my first version of the show, which was a lot about different men I had been with and stuff. So she really kind of saw that. And it was a bit of a challenge. And I was like, no, I always wanted to kiss a woman. I swear to this day, I wasn't like, but I have to kiss you now. But it was also unconscious and also like divine at the same time. And so to make a long story short, I guess she went and asked the owner of the house if she could bring me into the bedroom. And so
I'm looking around, where'd Brenda go? Oh, she's in the bedroom kissing a woman. I'm like, what? Who? And then she told me, I'm like, what? Okay, go Brenda, go.
So to make a long story short, we did go into the room, and I was a nervous wreck, although I thought about wanting to kiss a woman for a long time. And then when we kissed, it was probably the worst kiss either of us had ever had because I was so nervous. But then I remember she touched my leg, and it was like my body just shook, and we started kissing some more. Anyway, we left it off that, she was living in San Diego and I was in LA. We left it off, we'd see each other at school the next month, and that was it. There's a little more to the story, but I don't know how much to go into detail here. All right, I was dating someone at the time, and she was dating someone, but it was not serious, and we just kissed, even though I'm not saying that's right, but they weren't serious relationships. But I went home and I journaled about, oh my God, I kissed a woman, and I feel like it really honored me. And then she calls me the next Dana. She calls me the next morning and tells me asks me how I'm doing. And I told her, well, I wrote in my journal and blah 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 blah. And I said, I'm going to tell this guy that I'm dating because it's only right. And she's like, don't tell him. I said, well, I'm going to read him the journal. She's like, don't do that to the poor guy. So long story short, he came over in the morning with a bagel and coffee. He had been working the night before, and he said, I forgot what he said. He said, this gay guy came on to me at the job last night. And I'm like, well, something like that happened to me. And he goes, what'd you do, make out with a chick? And I said, yes. And so, I didn't read him my journal.
That he said a gay
I know,
guy.
it was so crazy.
Yeah, set you up too.
I know, and I don't really keep things back. I mean, really, most of my work is about being just honest and talking about things. So anyway, we lasted about 3 more weeks. She lasted about 3 more weeks with the person she was dating. And then the next month when we came to school, it was just like, oh my God, that's the one. And we've been together ever since. And I did that exercise about the ideal scene, pretty much right before I met her. And I also did inner child's work. And I thought,
a very clear intention.
Set a very clear intention. My heart was open. I was ready. And I did inner child's work that helped with me being able to trust myself to make good decisions. And I think that was part of why I was able to have my heart open with her. And
just be open to anything. I just want love.
Yeah.
And to receive love, to give love with a soul, not a sex.
And I guess I'm bisexual, I would say.
Yes.
So yeah. So that's what happened. And then then there was me telling my friends and family members and things like that, and having to deal with that, and just being open to be myself. I think one of the things with living through some hardship in life, at least for me, is that I'm not really caring about the little stuff anymore, and the little petty judgments, and all that kind of stuff. I would rather be happy than judge someone, or
worry about what someone's saying about you.
Right, like I'm human, so sometimes I'll think about that, but
but you
not interested.
still move forward. Yeah, you're not going to say, I'm not going to do this or choose this partner because it's affecting so and so.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. So you also wanted a family.
Yeah.
So you made that happen also, right?
It's so funny. I really wanted a family because I had been so close with my mom, and thought that wouldn't happen. And then, and Dana didn't want to have a family. And so we actually said, we were so in love, and yet we both said that we would stay together, in like 2 years we would revisit it, because I didn't want to be a single parent either. And we really consciously went into that, because I was like, I'm in love, I don't want to break up, and she felt the same way. And so 2 years later, we revisited it, and I was ready. I think we were both ready to, really look at it and say, well, some things are not, are you can't get through. And at that point, Dana was like, I want to be a mom if I can, if it means being with you. She was in love with me, and was willing to be a parent. And then, when you're 2 women, it's a little more difficult. So there were certain things we thought about doing and things that didn't work out. And then a few years ago, I knew the social worker for the boy who's now my son. She also went to USM. It seems like I owe everything to USM. I owe my family. I owe my livelihood. I owe my forgiveness work. It's really interesting. Yeah, it was a program in Los Angeles that hooked up foster children with mentors. So I at that point, we had let go of being parents. And so I thought, well, I'll volunteer with kids. And so I met with Jesse and his social worker. He was 11, and his social worker just thought we would be such a good match. So we met, and I was just going in to be a mentor, which entailed 8 hours once a month, from each month for a year. And we just fell in love with him. And so now he's been living with us since he is 12, and he's now almost 16. And so parenting is very different from mentoring, I just want to say. But it's amazing because I went from, I have no family, I'm alone, I'm never going to meet anyone, I can never trust anyone, to having an amazing relationship, the best relationship in my life with Dana. And we were able to get married last year, and Jesse was our best man, and he was so happy that we got to get married, and it was really beautiful.
Yeah, so you went from this traditional woman,
as traditional as I could be,
to marrying a woman, same sex, and then really taking in a kind of adopting African American child.
Yeah, we're quite the family.
So it's
we're quite the modern family.
I saw the photo on Facebook, going, "Okay, you go, Brenda."
Yeah,
it's like you just opened up all possibilities for you, and nothing had to look a certain way. Like you're saying, you loved your mom, maybe you wanted a daughter to have that relationship. And instead you took an older, almost a teenage son.
Yeah, it's really
from a different culture and background.
I feel like it's always saying yes to love.
It's saying yes to love.
It's always saying yes to love.
So how can other people get to that point to say yes to love? Because I think that's one of the biggest obstacles today. Any issue that almost anyone has that's sitting on this couch when I'm coaching them is they can't accept love, or they choose people who don't know how to give love, and they don't know how to give something. Love.
Yeah, I mean, when I was dating for several years before Dana and I got together, the men were getting nicer. I was probably getting nicer,
And you're probably open to nicer men instead of the bad boy.
Like I would say, the bad boy wasn't available to me, but the truth was I wasn't available. Yeah. So I think it has to do with radical responsibility, and I know a lot of people who say they want a relationship, but they're really scared. And so I think that there's a level of looking at the past just to inform you and make different choices, and doing a lot of self-forgiveness. And the inner child work for me was unbelievable, because I had this part of me that was like, nope, I am not opening my heart again. Nope, I am not trusting again. I am too afraid. And you, Brenda, as the adult, are not making wise choices, so I'm not going there. So it's about integrating these parts of you that may be trying to protect you. It doesn't work anymore.
Can you give me one or two inner child exercises that really helped shift you?
Yeah, I do give these exercises to clients as well. It's I like simple, because I personally don't like when I'm working with a coach and they give me so much work to do. First of all, taking a photo out of you at that young age stage, that, just a photo of you, pure, innocent, precious. And it could be any age stage. Sometimes you might even want to work with you as a teenager, because a lot of people have had a lot of stuff happen to them when they were teenagers. It's an age stage where you feel this part of you has been neglected. And so you take that picture out, you can put it next to your bed, you can put it in the bathroom, you could put it in the car. Just bring this aspect of you out, so that this part that is so sweet and doesn't want to be hurt knows that you are conscious of it. And then the other thing would be just, there's two ways to do this. You just give that aspect of you a voice at night before you go to sleep, and let that aspect know. Like if I was talking to little Brenda, I'd say, I just want to hear what you have to say. I'm here, and I'm just going to listen, and I'm just going to love you. And sometimes that aspect is really, really angry. And so it's never about using that part of you to beat yourself up. So if that's the case, and that aspect's so angry because you haven't listened to it, or let's say you were abused when you were younger, and you just, you're still angry about that, it's really important to tap into your higher self, which is something I did, which I never even knew I had access to before my mom died, but my pain was so unbearable, I was able to open it up enough to feel something bigger than me. So I would say bring that part in, your inner counselor, your inner guidance, to listen to that part of you so that you as the adult doesn't have to take on.
And one way
stuff.
to do that is writing it down. You know, your inner child, and even
Right.
giving it a name,
Right.
and you, and just dialoguing back
Right.
and forth.
If you want to do a little more work, yes, and it's a
Yeah.
great exercise. But
Great for a journal,
right.
just for you and your inner
I actually
child.
think that's so good because then that's there, and then the simple part to do if you've done that, let's say earlier in the day, or you don't want to do that day, you then just bring that picture of the inner child into your mind's eye and just do one forgiveness of judgment of yourself or maybe a parent.
Oh, I love that. Just even one. Anyone can do just one.
Just one.
Like when you're saying simplify.
Yeah. I forgive myself for judging myself. I forgive myself for judging my mother as being too caught up in her own story to be there for me. You know, the truth is when I judge her, I get caught up in my story and I'm no longer willing to do that. You know, there's all kinds of things to say. Or, you know, I forgive myself for judging myself as trusting my father. I don't have to do that anymore. You know, just simple, just like that. Just every day for a month, you know, at least a month, every day, so that you start to have a relationship. It's almost like, it's so funny, I don't know why this just popped into my head, but it's almost like having a relationship with your body when you go to the gym and your muscles start responding to you.
Yes.
It's the same thing. If you don't go to the gym, it's going to get flabby. It's like letting these aspects of you, these parts that have been unheard, unused, you know that they're there. The light is being shined on them to expand and be listened to so that they can be integrated, because that was pivotal to me opening my heart again and being able to step forward and with falling in love even, because I could trust that that part wasn't going to stop me and that I was listening. I was listening. If someone was going to hurt me, I would listen and not go in that direction, you know?
Oh, absolutely. So what advice would you give your teenage self today?
Goodness, I did so much work with my inner teenager. So let me just say one thing on that. I had to do work on I had to embrace my inner bully, because I realized I felt like a victim.
That is genius. Yes, your inner bully. We all have that.
Yeah, and I was so cut off from it because I identified as a victim.
Yes.
You know, most people identify with one parent. If I could identify as my mother's role of victim, then at least if I'm a victim, I'm nice, as opposed to a bully.
Yes.
So I was so completely cut off from that. And it was, of course, leaking out, because we're all victim, bully, we're everything. And so my bully would leak out in my relationships. And so it would leak out with Dana or whoever I was with before. I'm sorry, everyone, and I forgive myself, but, you know, and taking responsibility now because everything was unconscious. But I went and I did this 30 or 32-day process with my inner bully, and just the recognition that I had a bully completely shifted my relationship with Dana. And probably with everyone, and also with myself, because, right, so many people are victims, but then they're bullying themselves harshly all the time.
Yeah, you're your own worst bully.
Yeah, so what I would say, though, to my teenager, because as a teenager, I did feel like a victim, to my big family and all the chaos that was happening, I felt like I wasn't living for myself. I would say, hang on, believe in yourself. This is going to change. And you can experience a lot of love and peace in your life.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what do you want your legacy to be?
I believe that my legacy is going to be in alignment with the work I'm doing, which is about forgiveness mostly and embracing your story. I'm so passionate about helping people to let go of the pain of the past, or even right now in this moment, by letting go of their judgments. And so I would say my legacy is to inspire people to forgive whatever they're going on with, you know, whatever's going on in their life. Hopefully what I've lived through, because it is dramatic, can inspire others to say, I don't have to hold on to that anymore. I can forgive and live in the present right now. And then also know that there's nothing to be ashamed of with your story, that if you can express yourself fully and share your story and you've done your inner work, that you are helping many other people.
Oh, that's beautiful. I want to ask you, what if someone's story is really dealing with harsh shame and something that they've done that is not it wasn't the right thing to do, like a pedophile or something. How do they do what you just said? How do they get over the shame or share their story? They'll be ridiculed. Lena Dunham's book just came out, and she just shared about her childhood and something she did. Did you read?
I didn't read it yet. No,
it's just something about what she did with her sister, who's was 1 year old, and what really appears to me is innocence and exploring. It just is turned into this whole thing. So I mean, she tried to do what you just did, and look what happened. So how do you respond to that?
I actually think that people who have done things like that, pedophiles, and I've changed a lot on this, because my whole thing was I used to be so righteous and like people are wrong. But anytime that energy is around, you're creating more negativity in the world and more harm and more darkness. And so I think the most important thing for people to do who have done something wrong, something they feel like they should be ashamed for and maybe should be, that it's still the same process of applying loving to those parts inside that hurt. Because I truly believe people wouldn't hurt other people if they felt worthy and loved.
That's absolutely right. I think all hurt, all bullying comes from your own deep pain. But I have a couple of clients who have done certain things, and they're trying to get over that. And I don't want to say Lena's this at all, because I don't believe that at all. I think she's a storyteller and tried to be artistic with
about telling the story.
Things. So
I don't think you should tell your story to anybody.
Okay, I thought that's what you were mentioning.
I actually don't think you should tell your story to anyone who's going to be not supportive of you.
So
and that's what I tell people. Write it for yourself and sharing it with someone you can trust.
Your intimate circle.
That's it. I don't
Thank you for clarifying.
You can share with other people, and there are always consequences. People are going to judge us anyway.
Regardless, yes.
But if you're a storyteller, then that's your venue that you're going to do that. I say start where you are and never share your story just to kind of, some people share their story because they want to get their pain out on someone else. So that's not even what I'm saying, because that's not fair to the other person you're telling your story to. It's about doing your inner process at the same time as sharing your story. And if you can't share it with someone else, just writing it down, that was really a great first step for me. Just writing down, I'm so angry. For me, I haven't done something like what you're mentioning, but just at one point, I wanted to kill my father for what he did and all that pain, and I had never tapped into that part of me that could ever want to kill someone, And it's really important. Like, I wrote it down on the pages of my journal, and with the writing out of it, I could release it. Otherwise, it was in my head.
And say, "Wow, that's even in me."
Right,
and aspect of me could kill.
And eventually, I could let it go. But I actually have to touch the anger first. I teach a 3-step process on forgiveness, and the first step is getting out of denial, moving into acceptance of what is, because I lived in so much denial of things. And then for those people who spend their time beating themselves up, you can change.
People who fought in the war, Afghanistan, Iraq.
And they feel such guilt and PTSD.
I killed, or I did this, or I almost whatever.
I once did a show, and there was a Vietnam vet in there, and he had men under him who died, and he was so guilty. He felt so guilty for that he wouldn't let any of his family close to him. And I did a workshop after that on forgiveness, and it was just that. It was like, you have to forgive yourself, because you holding yourself in like this is not going to help anybody.
No, that was a time where they're trained to do certain things. Yeah. They're in an environment where if they don't, it's such a different world.
Yeah.
And you can't live with that your whole life and say, I did this. It was like, really, you were brainwashed.
Right.
Someone,
and they can talk to other people who have been in the same,
Exactly.
That's what I would say, talk to your
peers. You don't have to share it with the world, share it with the people who get it, understand.
Yes, a therapist, a coach.
Get it out.
Even if it's on the pages of your journal, and then you throw it away afterwards, it really gets it out of your head and out of your heart and out.
And to exercise that anger, like beating a tree.
It's so important. I went to a primal workshop where I was like, and I was like, where is this coming from? Because I defined myself as, I'm a nice girl, but I was, overeating. I was over exercising. I was, shopping. I was doing things to numb out, and because I had all this pain inside and I was refusing, not even consciously, we're brought up, you be a nice girl.
Absolutely.
And I had to get that pain out, not in an unhealthy way, but at an anger workshop.
Yes.
So it's really important. If you're so angry at yourself,
Yes.
go to an anger workshop so you stop taking it out on yourself and stop, learn the lesson and change.
And then you won't take it out on others, and others won't find you an easy
It
punching
leaks
bag.
out.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and you won't be a punching bag,
Yes,
right? Because
yes.
if you feel bad about yourself, you're going to attract people that
Absolutely.
are going to treat you
I
like you
it.
think.
I'm a victim, so yeah.
Exactly.
Beat me up, I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
It's
it's
on
like
your forehead.
our patterns dovetail.
Yes.
If you're not conscious.
Yes.
So
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
this
for
was
having
wonderful.
me.
And so many great nuggets.
Thanks so much for
fantastic.
having me.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
you.